Going for a bigger audience?
I don't know what the heck. But on Toy Direct, there's Toy Direct. It stays there. That's the beauty of it. Now we're officially on Facebook. Let me see if I'll look. With this, it's like a couple of minutes behind.
Oh,
David, how you doing?
good. I was on the Facebook last week.
I just put it back. I just put it on. It's on Toy Direct. I just got it on there, I believe. It should be on there. The problem with Toy Direct is, and with Facebook, this thing is like it's like a 20-second or 30-second delay.
It's not quite live.
It's not like quite live. I don't know why they don't have it so connected yet, but that's the way it goes. Okay, it's on live right now on Toy Direct, but
that's just one way, though, right?
What do you say?
That's just one way. They talk. You can talk to them, but they can't talk back. Is that the?
Well, that on Facebook they cannot talk back to you. They can type in. They can have it. That's the beauty of this, that you can on Zoom you can actually talk back.
Yeah. So Daniel, last week I was on it. I could hear you talking, but I couldn't interact at all.
Right, but now you could interact. So okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to start from the Mishnah again. We're going to start from the Mishnah on 10b2. We're going to start there, and we're going to go. It's just a couple of lines before, because it's a little bit complicated, the Gemara a little bit. So I want to go back to the Mishnah. Is that okay with everybody?
Sure thing.
It's only going back one page. So the Mishnah, the Mishnah over here says a very interesting concept in the aspect of shtaris in general, because in general, we don't have to bring in the manifestation, whatever the shtari. Let's just talk about two shtaris. Shtari gittin, the documents of a get, and the documents, money documents. Shtari general documents, money documents. So the differences in between the two kinds of documents. That's between the get document and the document that is given to a money transaction, right? So let's learn the Mishnah. The Mishnah says as follows: all documents that are processed in a non-Jewish court, even if they are signed by non-Jewish people, they are valid as documents. They're valid documents. So if somebody comes with a document of money that Shimon owes, Reuben owes Shimon $100, and it's signed, and it's a document of an American court, it's kosher. It's a valid document, and he can collect the money with the document, even though it's signed by non-Jews. So we accept the non-Jewish court. What?
Includes real estate too, right?
What'd you say?
Real estate.
Yeah, money, real estate, any monetary issue, civil issue.
No.
Chutz, besides megite nashim v'shchura avodim. Besides, if this document is a get and the freedom of slaves. So let's forget about the freedom of slaves right now. It's a get. So a get would not be a kosher document. Would not be a valid document. If a person came with a document signed that he got divorced, that him and Yankel and Rachel got divorced, with a document that was given by a court, signed by Goyim, it's not acceptable. Rav Shimon comes, Rav Shimon says, so Rav Shimon says, no, that if you have a document, a get, that is written in a Goyish court, and a non-Jewish court signed by non-Jewish people, it's considered a valid document. And then the Gemara continues. That's why it's to get a little complicated. The Mishnah continues and says, Lo yuskuru. They are not mentioned. This was not mentioned. We'll soon see what that means. Lo yuskuru. It was not mentioned. This law, ela bizman shenasu behedit. So we have the Mishnah says this law was not said only if it was written by a hedjit. A hedjit means that it was done in a guy's private home. It was not in the court. It was done in somebody's home. Guy wrote a document, 2 witnesses, and he wrote a document. And if it's acceptable or not. Then, in essence, it was written, but by hedjit, seemingly it wouldn't be acceptable. Okay, that's the Mishnah. It gets a little complicated because what is the last wording of the Mishnah? Where does it go on exactly? Does it go on Shimon? Does it go on the Tanna Kama that says all documents are accepted and not get? And Shimon says also a get. And then this statement is thrown in that it's a hedjit. It's not a court, but it's a hedjit. And we'll soon see in the what's fascinating about this Gemara is you'll understand over here the way the halacha looks at a regular court, so to say, the court of a regular civil court, and why we accept documentation from a regular civil court.
Yeah.
So the Gemara now says now we go to the Gemara. We learned the Gemara already before. Gemara says Karpasiv Itani. The Mishnah states this rule. And this rule, seemingly the Mishnah, from the wording of the Mishnah, I mean the Tanna Kama, the beginning of the wording of the Mishnah, Kol Hashtaris, all documents that come to court are acceptable. So from the Mishnah, it sounds like Loishanu, Mecha Loishanu Matan, doesn't make a difference what kind of document. Any document, whether it's a document of giving, a matana, that is a document that Yankov gave a matana to Shimon, his house, or whether it's a document Yankov sold his house. Doesn't make a difference. Kol Hashtaris, all documents, right? So the Gemara says that doesn't sound correct. Bishlei Mecher, I can understand the law of a sale in a concept where there's a sale. Mi Bayav Zuzika Mayu, because over there was a physical transaction. Yankel, the document is just saying about the physical transaction. The document says that Yankel bought the house for $100,000. There was a transfer of money, right? So really, the document is only a document of a story. The document is telling you what happened. Yankel gave $100,000 for this house. So what bought the house? $100,000 bought the house. The document is really only telling us a story. But really, what bought the house is the $100,000. That's bought the house. So therefore, that's what's important. So that's that this money was given over. Who the kana? That's what acquires the piece of land. The money. Yaakov gave Shimon $100,000. Now he bought his property. And the document is only a proof that of this transaction. That this happened. But really, what did accomplish the transformation of the process was the money. Because if he didn't give money, because if he didn't give money, if Shimon didn't give Yankov them, or Yankov didn't give Shimon the money, why would he write such a document? Who would write such a document? It's a crazy document. Right. Nobody's going to write a document unless they got the money. So therefore, nobody would write such a document without giving the money, because that would be crazy.
Right. Even
He's gonna make sure before I give you the document of sale, you give me the money. That's why even in America today, you have to take the money, you have to put it into an escrow account. Escrow account. I'm sorry, wrong word. An escrow account. Why? Because I'm not going to give you the money. I don't want you to. I'm not going to give you the money if you're not going to give me the document, and I'm not going to give you the document if you're not going to give me the money. So therefore, what do? We put an escrow account, and now we're sure the money is there. The second you give me the document, I give you the money. The money goes to you. So that's. But what really sells the property is the money. The document is not worth anything without the money. Ela matana. But when it comes to a matana, a gift, then my kakani. How does a acquirement of property? The guy Yankov says, writes in a document, I gave Shimon my house. How does the house become his? He didn't give him. There's no money transaction of money. It was a matana. It was a gift. So Lav B'Hai it must be, it became his property through a document. The document is making it his house. What else is making it his house? This document is a piece of paper. It's a chas v'ba'alma. It's a paper that's written by a civil court, and l'chayr it should be valueless, right? It's written by civil court, and it's signed by non-Jewish by idol worshippers. It's a chas v'ba'alma. Why would Jewish court accept such a document? And the Gemara says it's a good question. So the Gemara answers, Shmuel. So Shmuel says, dinner machus dinner. So when it comes to money, when it comes to civil issues, it's a general concept. When it comes to civil issues, we go with the law of the land. And if the court is acceptable by the law of the land, and the court accepts these witnesses, that's a sale. Dinner the malchusa dinner. End of story. The law of the land is the law when it comes to financial issues.
Okay.
So therefore, even matana, we're going to accept this document. Okay, so the Tana Kama says we accept a document. We accept a document by a non-Jewish court, and not by a get. A get, a divorce, is not a legal document. That's a spiritual concept. It's not a legal thing. You were married by a rabbi, you need to get divorced by the Torah. It says you need to get divorced, and that needs to be done through a bezdin. If you come with a civil divorce, garnished. Comes up Shimon, and Shimon disagrees. Right? Okay, no. The Gemara continues. Yibai Seima. Another way to go. Tani chutz michi giti nashim. That it comes to accept for the document that I like gittin of a woman. So, like a get, that can be a gift document too. Like a get, just like a get is a spiritual concept, and she acquires herself through non-act through the document. So to anything else that has that the document is going to do it for the person is not acceptable. So according to this answer, then the Tana Kama holds that even a gift is not acceptable. So the only thing that would be acceptable would be a transaction of money, a transaction of sale, a sale document. Okay, so the question is, what's the halacha? The halacha like the Ibai Seima, or like the previous answer, and the answer would be that the halacha is going to be like the Ibai Seima. So halacha is going to be like the Ibai Seima. That you're not going to accept the document. You're not going to accept. The only thing you accept by according to the Tana Kama, the only thing you accept by a legal document is only a sale transaction, but not a matana or a get. Okay, that's the Tana Kama. We just explained officially the Tana Kama. So now the Gemara continues and says that Rab Shimon disagrees, and Rab Shimon says that a get that comes from a non-Jewish court would be considered a get. Now we know the answer already. Why? Right? We already answered because Rab Shimon holds the most important thing is Edim Mesida, is the giving over the get.
To see the passing of it to the woman.
So as long as you have two witnesses, two kosher witnesses that are giving over this get, then it's a kosher get. So Rab Shimon, basically, that's his. We know that already from Rab Shimon before in the previous Gemara, right? Shimon, Rab Shimon says also these are valid. Right? The Gemara, why would Rab Shimon validate this document? They're not b'nei krisus. They're not obligating the laws of marriage, Jewish marriage. Yeah. They're not a non-Jew is not obligated to go through the Jewish marriage. They can go to civil marriage. Mm-hmm. A Jew is obligated to go through Jewish marriage, even though he goes through a civil marriage. And that's why we do both today. We give a civil marriage, and we do a Jewish marriage because you had dinner malchus dinner. You got to get married civilly, but it doesn't help you getting married civilly in the Torah if you don't get married with the chuppah v'kiddushin. So but they're not like Christians. They are not obligating the law, these laws. So why would we accept them? Why would they be valid things? So that's what we answered. We already gave the answer to this. Rab Zayda said, Rab Shimon went to follow the view of Rabbi Eliezer, the Amri, which he holds, that the ones who do a divorce in a marriage is not the ones on the document, but the ones who see that the document is handed over to the woman, and that's called Eidei Mesira, the witnesses of transfer, right? Mesira. Mesira means when I transfer from A to B. So in a get, you have Eidei Ksiva. You have two witnesses that see the writing of a get, and you have Eidei Mesira. It's only by a get you have Eidei Mesira. There's no, by a regular document, you don't have Eidei Mesira. By a get, because it says v'nosan lo, v'kosav v'nosan lo. It's a very interesting wording in the Torah. V'kosav, you shall write it. V'nosan, you shall give it. So there's two concepts. There's a concept of ksiva, writing a get correctly, v'kosav lo, and there's v'nosan lo, that there has to be a concept of giving, that she needs to be given the get. That means we need to see that it was given to her. Right? It was transferred to her, the get. And that's Eidei Mesira. That's the witnesses of transformation.
And is it the same witness?
No, there could be two different witnesses.
Okay.
They don't have to be the same.
It could be the same. How do we do it now?
Today we do it the same because it's all done in the Bezdin. So it's always the two same witnesses.
Oh.
But
unless they're in two different cities or whatever.
Yeah, today they're the same guys because they're embezzled, they're in court already. But like, for example, if they write the get in New York City and she's given a get in Florida, right? The husband's in New York and they hand her the get in Florida. So there's Eidei Ksiva, there's two witnesses that watch the get, but she's not up to get yet until we give her the get. So she is not divorced until we give her the get. And what is her divorce is giving her this document. So we need to make sure to have two witnesses that see the transforming, the giving of the document. And in that situation, for example, coming from New York, then we have besides Eidei Mesira, we have to have a shliach, lahiva. You have to create a messenger, a shliach. Like that's this Gemara, the shliach. So the shliach is a whole different, a whole different character. So he has to be. So, for example, today in the world of Gittin, and I've done it, because I'm not telling you a concept of coming to Florida, because that's what's done. So it gets written in New York, it's sent to Florida to me. In this package is that they know already who they're sending it to. They're sending it to I become the shliach, and now I need to bring a bezdin as a shliach. I'm not the rabbi anymore. I'm the shliach. I'm the messenger. And we have to have a court. And the court now has to sit as me as a messenger, bringing the get to the woman. And now we have to have a court, 3 rabbis, and 2 witnesses that see giving over the get. So it's a get is a much more complicated process. It's harder. It's harder to get divorced in Jewish law than to get married. Thank God, because actually the Chazal, the sages made it harder because they didn't want people to get divorced. So they made it. People realized they have to go through too much paperwork, as they say in America. It's too much work. It's too many issues. So therefore, the heck with it. We'll stay married, right? So I gotta go through too many loops. But that's the way it is. So let's go back to Gemara. It's a beautiful Gemara here. So the Gemara says that Shimon holds that Eidei Mesira, that by him the most important thing is the giving over of the get. It's not the writing of the get. is the giving over of the get. Right? It's not everybody agrees with that. Most don't agree with that. Most told the most important for custom and us on most important things are the people written on the get. Right?
Right.
But that's why Rabbi Shimon says it doesn't matter whose signatures are on the get. What matters is who's
Correct.
there when she gets it.
Right. So Rabbi Shimon holds it's not a problem that the get is written by a non-Jewish court and signed even by non-Jewish people. Because the most important thing is the two Jewish people that are going to see the transforming, the giving over of the get. That's what's important. So now the Gemara says, Rabba said, you're saying Rabbi Shimon is going according to Rabbi Lezer. We know Rabba said, Rabba holds that if there's a problem with the get itself, if there's a problem in the get itself, there are different kinds of way that this get is falsified. It can be a mistake from the husband, it became a mistake from the Rav, but then there can be a mistake in the get itself. There's something invalid in the get itself. What can be invalid in the get itself? Two non-Jewish witnesses. That could be the greatest invalidness of a get, that you have two witnesses that are not Jewish. So how can you even come up with this thing that you have Eidim and Siddur, but the get itself is invalid. The get itself is invalid. So how can you process such a get that has two non-Jewish witnesses when there's a problem with the get itself? You're gonna see the answer of the Gemara, which is a fascinating answer. So the Gemara answers this question because this is a general question. How can you say a get is valid when you have two witnesses that are not kosher? Imagine you have two witnesses that are ganovim on the get. The two witnesses that are known to be thieves. It would be a joke. The get's a joke. The document's a joke. So the document's a joke. You're giving a get that the document's a joke. So the Gemara answers as follows. That's why I wanted to learn the Gemara again, because this is a very interesting answer the Gemara gives. And the Gemara gives Hachav Mayaskinam the Shemus Muvakim. The Gemara says that the rabbis or the court knew that the get they wanted to prove that the get should not be acceptable by its witnesses. So what kind of people the witness they put on? They put on witnesses that we would never accept. Right? And what kind of witnesses? B'shemus Muvakim. They found the signatures were with Goyish names that you would never be able to make a mistake that it's a Jewish name. Right? So it's not a mezuyif. It's not something where somebody tried to trick somebody or somebody did something, an invalid thing. This was specifically done that way. So the document was written James. Right? James. I don't know. James could be a Jewish name. The Gemara comes up with these names. What would be a Goyish name today? You know? What?
Christian.
Chris. Who's gonna? I'm thinking James. But there's a lot of Jews that have James. Peter. A lot of people have Peter. I know Peters. So you have to have a good name. You know, Christopher. I don't know. Muhammad. No Jew is gonna write such a name, right? So you have to find a name like that. Jesus, I don't know. Pick out a good non-Jewish name.
Yeah.
So the Gemara picks out these names. Amar Papa again, Hurmiz. Hurmiz is not a Jewish name. Va'avudani, Bashifte, Baktiri, Bati, Menakim, Una. I never heard these names in general at all. Forget about Jewish or not Jewish. So these are all these names. The Gemara, it says at the bottom, all these names are judges of idolaters. So these were no names in the times of the Gemara. These were no non-Jewish names.
They were famous goyim.
Famous goyim. So therefore, the famous
People named their
goyim,
kids after.
the famous goyim, we know that these names are idolaters, and therefore, Rabbi Shimon says that if it's signed by such a kind of people, then it was specifically done that way, and therefore you have nothing to worry that person is going to say that it's going to be might be a Jewish name, it's Mezuyah, it's there's some kind of trick over here, there's some kind of a play of names, etc., etc. Yeah, you got it. You're with me, everybody?
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's going to get a little bit more today. Now the Gemara says. So you answered the Gemara. You said the answer is we're talking about names that are clear, goyish and then Rabbi Shimon says it's good.
And we agree with the premise. The Mishnah's premise was that it's coming out of a goyish court, right?
Correct.
Right. So we're still holding that. Not only does it come out of a goyish court, but the names on it are total goyim.
Correct. And therefore,
right.
And therefore, you have nothing to worry about.
Well, the Mishnah says you still shouldn't accept that, but Rabbi Shimon says you don't worry about it.
You don't have to worry about it. Right. Rabbi Shimon says you don't have to worry.
Right.
Now the Gemara says, according to this, let's ask the question. Avol shemesh shein mevakim. So what would Rabbi Shimon say if it would not be shemesh mevakim? It's names that are maybe Jewish names.
Neutral
names. Names that maybe Jews might use. What would Rabbi Shimon hold if it was names that are not clear names?
Alexander.
So then it comes that Rabbi Shimon would say, Alexander, right? So Rabbi Shimon would hold it's not good. Right? Comes out, Rabbi Shimon hold it's not good. Achi, listen to this. You gotta listen to this, the Gemara. If you have the Gemara in front of you, you still have to listen. If you don't have the Gemara, you surely have to listen. But listen, this is where you know that you learn the Gemara with your finger like this. When you learn the Gemara, you have to have your thumb like
your thumb out, yes.
Right, you cannot learn Gemara without your thumb available. So the Gemara says, if so, at the Tani Sefer, that's why I want you to remember the last part of the Mishnah. Last part of the Mishnah says, Lo Yiskiru, that they did not mention this law, Ela Bizman Shenasu Behedjit. When it's done, Behedjit, it was a goy, but it was not done in a court. It was done Behedjit. Behedjit means in a regular setting, a house setting.
House, yeah.
Simple guy. Behedjit. That's the. Yeah. With the Mishnah says that is talking in a time that it was done in a hedges. Why did Rabbi Shimon need to use that wording? Why did Rabbi Shimon need to use the wording? Now the Mishnah is taking the premises that it's Rabbi Shimon who's saying that. So the question is, Rabbi Shimon says, a get isha is accepted, right? Rabbi Shimon says a get isha is accepted, but only lehuskuru elazman shenasa behedjit, right? Only Rabbi Shimon will hold only if it's done lehuskuru. They are not mentioned in the study hall as being invalid. Only if it was done behedjit. Rabbi Shimon says only if it comes out of a court is I'm accepting them, but not if it comes out of a private home. Correct? Oh, Rabbi Shimon could have made the difference, not by a hedjit. Rabbi Shimon could have made a difference even in a civil court. Did the difference between if the names are muvakim or the names are not muvakim? Why did Rabbi Shimon have to bring the word of hedjit in the story? Rabbi Shimon could have said, if it comes out of court, it's valid only if it's clear names. But if it's not clear names, even if it comes out of a court, it's not valid. Are you with me, guys? The Mishnah says they are not mentioned only when it's done, when it's not done privately. Rab Shimon could have learned it in the concept of a court, not in the concept of a hedjit, in the concept of a court, a regular court. When do I say a regular court is acceptable? The shemus mevakim, when the names are real non-Jewish names. But if they're not Jewish, real non-Jewish names, they're not accepted. So why does the Mishnah then say a hedjit? Why does the ending of the Mishnah throw in the word hedjit?
Bringing in this other concept. He doesn't need to bring in this other concept.
Why is the Mishnah throwing in a hedjit over here? What is the Mishnah? The Mishnah is outdoing itself.
Right.
So it doesn't make sense. If the difference is it's a court or not a court, okay, I understand. But if the difference is the names that are real Goyish names and not real Goyish names has nothing to do with if it's in a court or not a court. In the court itself, that's the difference. You hear?
And we're saying that Rabbi Shimon is talking about whether the names on the get are Jewish or not, just because he's got to agree with Rabbi Elazar.
Well, he's basing it on Rabbi Elazar. He's basing.
Right. So Rabbi Elazar says that if it's not signed by kosher witnesses, the whole document is valid to begin with, and so you can't accept it.
Correct.
So therefore, we're saying, well, so we're not worried about these signatures because they're obviously not there to be kosher.
So the Gemara said, but here the Gemara says, listen how the Gemara answers. So listen how the Gemara answers. The Gemara says, Hachinami Kama. The Mishnah is saying this and also. So the Mishnah is saying as follows. You gotta hold your head over here.
So the Gemara still says it's Rabbi Shimon in the Mishnah, right?
Right. It's Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon, the whole thing is Rabbi Shimon. And Rabbi Shimon is saying as follows. Ahmed v'amorim. When do I say in a court is acceptable? B'shemus mevakim. When they are names that are really non-Jewish names. Avol shem she'enim mevakim. But if there are names that are not so clear, nasa kimisha nasa behedit, as if it was done privately. So Rabbi Shimon holds only a court is acceptable, and only if it's shemus mevakim. But if it's done privately, even if shemus mevakim, it's not acceptable. So that's what the Mishnah says. Rabbi Shimon says that he accepts the get that comes out of a court only if the shemus, the names are mevakim, the names are clear to be non-Jewish. But if the names are not clear, is as if that's done by a private person. And by a private person, it's not even good even if it's the arm of Vakim. Private person is never acceptable. Is as if the document was made privately, upsulim, and it would be invalid.
What if it's a shanaso hedjit, but there's no signatures at all? Does Rabbi Elazar accept that then?
There was no signatures at all. Okay, that's another question. That's another question. That's another question. That's a different question. Yeah. That's a different question. Right. We went through that question before. If even a Torah with the Rabbanan, I mean, ultimately, if you hold the Rabbanan,
that's been wrote it himself.
You already learned that. But even if the Rabbanan, you have to have signatures ultimately on this document. The Rabbanan.
Okay.
But now,
I'll tell what Rabbi Elazar would say. But okay, right. We'll go on.
So the Gemara, the Iboy Seima. Now we come to our own different answer. Iboy Seima. I'll give you another answer. The Mishnah is not talking about Rabbi Shimon. Mishnah is not going with Rabbi Shimon.
The end of the document is not Rabbi Shimon. It's just a separate statement.
It's a separate statement. Seifa Asa Legiti Mammon. Seifa is going to the Rabbanon. It's going back to the sages about money matters, about money. The Seifa is going to the beginning. The Seifa is not talking of Shimon. The Seifa refers to financial documents. So it's not a conclusion of Shimon's statement. It's going back to the previous beginning. Tana said that it's acceptable. All documents are acceptable. Financial documents are not mentioned in the study that they are invalid. So that's the Mishnah. The Mishnah is going back on the previous statement that documents are accepted, legal documents are accepted from a court, unless it's done behedget. It's not done in a legal court.
Here.
What?
Yeah, the Gemara's original reasoning was that
I wouldn't recommend someone that she felt
if it's from a court, the judges are worried about their reputation.
Right. Correct. Right. We accept the legal court. Dinner. Because dinner machus dinner. Listen, it's the dinner machus dinner. The law of the land is the law of the land, and it's acceptable.
Dentist.
But this star was just written by some guy.
Gil or whatever.
Right.
Ew.
Now they're going to continue.
Accept that.
There were a
And
couple.
we learned in the Braisa. So now they're going to continue time. We learned in the Braisa. The son of Reisi said, this is what Rav Shimon said to the sages in Tzidon.
That higher that
And the
further.
Chachamim did not dispute. Kakiv and the Chachamim did not dispute. The Kakiv and the Chachamim did not have a machlekes. Al kol hashtaros ha'odin on all documents ha'olin ba'arkei shel Ovdei Chachamim. All documents processed by courts of idolaters. She'af al pi shechos min Ovdei Chachamim, that even though these documents are signed by idolaters, kashedim, they are valid. Even documents that are written by get of a woman and freedom of slaves. Everybody, so this sage says, everybody agree that it was written by the court, it's accepted. The only argument is if it's done privately. So here comes another sage and says, Rabbi Yossi says, no, their argument is not about courts. Everybody would agree in courts, it's accepted. The argument is only about done privately. Now that throws the whole wrench in.
Yeah.
What's the machlekes? So this sage says, Rabbi Kiva says it's valid, even if it's done privately. The Chachamim Paislim, and the Chachamim say it's invalid. Chutz migitei nashim v'shchurei avodim. Besides divorce, that it's kosher. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamaliel says a whole different thing, according to him. Af elu kshedim b'makim she'en Yisrael chaysmin. These are kosher in a place only where Jews do not sign. That means the government does not let Jews sign. In those days, the government did those things. So the government said Jews are not allowed to sign the document.
Probably unless you can sign in Greek, right?
No, they didn't let Jews sign. They didn't let Jews in the court. Jews cannot sign a document. Jews were not accepted in the courts. That's nothing new. So then you know that the government is not letting Jews sign. So what's the problem? What's the problem? We know the document was not signed by anything but by goyim, and it's not a problem. So Rabbi Shimon says, but in the place that Jews signed, now we have a problem. If they let Jews sign, now we don't know who's the guy who signed. Could be a Jew, could be a goy. Now, if it's not a kosher situation, it's mezuyif b'toichei. It's invalid. In essence, if you have a non-kosher Jew sign the document in this way, it's worse than because a non-kosher Jew would invalidate the document. So therefore, Rav Shimon says, if we know that the Goyish court does not allow the Jews to sign, it's a kosher document. Because the most important thing is giving over the document, right? We have witnesses that gave over the document.
All right, so a question here. Is Shimon ben Gamliel talking just about Uskin Behedget? Or is he talking about even from a court?
No, it's the Hedget, according to this. Even
talking about Hedget, right?
Right, a Hedget. Regular guys got together and signed the document.
But, so this is a place where Jews can't even sign a private document? Is that a thing? Was that ever a thing?
Yep, they're not allowed. The local governments are not allowed Jews to sign documents.
Wow. Like maybe it wouldn't hold up. Like, I don't know. Wow.
Well, okay. Jews are not allowed. Jews are not allowed to own businesses. They weren't allowed to own property. There were a lot of things that Jews were not allowed under the Roman rule. You know, I know my father told me in Poland, they weren't allowed to own businesses. They weren't allowed to own anything. They weren't. They weren't allowed, everything had to be done in the black market those days. Because you weren't allowed to own businesses. Yeah. Imagine how are you supposed to make a living? So they forced people to do things illegally because you couldn't do anything legally. The crazy laws,
All right, so this Baraita really seems to go against our Mishnah.
Right.
The Mishnah,
no, it's not clear in the Mishnah. Not clear in the Mishnah. The Mishnah
seems to say pretty plainly that we're going to accept everything from a court except for Gitei Nashim. And here it says, this Bryce is saying, even Gitei Nashim from a court are going to be okay, no matter who signs them.
Correct.
And the only issue is about private documents.
Correct.
So it seems to disagree with the Mishnah.
So this, right, correct. Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi must have been a Tanya.
No. But then again, this was taught by Rabbi Elazar, who agrees with Rabbi Shimon. So maybe Rabbi Elazar disagrees with our Mishnah.
Could be. But according to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, the rabbis disqualify even Gittin, on which the names are characteristic idolaters, but did not disqualify Gittin written in a place where Jews were not allowed to sign. So the Gemara says, if Farag finds its opinion inconsistent, but really, he should have made the Chachamim should have made a gezerah on a situation where Jews they can sign. They should have made a gezerah that you cannot accept a document where Jews cannot sign because of a document where Jews can sign. They need. Well, how do we know in every place where Jews could sign and Jews can sign? So how do we, when a document comes from another city, how do you know what's happening in that other city? So in general, that's what was a gezerah. They used to make a gezerah that you cannot accept a document in A because maybe in B. So therefore, didn't the sages make this kind of a law that we should evaluate a document that we know for the place that was not signed, because maybe a document of a place that was signed will come to us. And how will we know which document came from the place that was signed and which document came from the place that wasn't signed?
Right, but we don't typically put a gezerah on top of a gezerah, though.
Okay, what's the gezerah on top of the gezerah? It's one gezerah. Well, you're afraid.
One gezerah that, well, there's a gezerah that if Jews can sign, then we're not going to accept.
No, Jews can't sign, not a problem. The Gemara says if Jews can't sign, it's not a problem. We know that the Jews can't sign.
If Jews cannot sign,
the gezerah is for the Jews that can sign.
The gezerah is right. The gezerah is a get from a private get from a place where Jews are allowed to sign that might be signed by non-Jews. We're not going to accept. That's the gezerah. So then the gezerah on top of that gezerah is to say, no, we're going to put the gezerah also on places where Jews cannot sign because of the place where they can sign. So you could say that. The Gemara doesn't go there.
The Gemara goes a different way.
Simple answer, but
and the Gemara says, Shema b'Shema machlif. One confused a name with a name. Asr ba'asr le machlif. So the Gemara says, every place is known. So you know what's happening in another city. Names can be made mistake that you don't know which place, which names. But to make a difference, to not know of one place to another place, the get comes from Boca. Everybody knows what the laws, what's happening in Boca. And everybody knows that the laws of Boca is different than the laws of Coral Springs. So how can you make how would you mix up between Boca and Coral Springs when people know in Boca there are such crazy laws and in Coral Springs there are not these crazy laws? So therefore, he didn't want to make such a gezerah, didn't want to make such a thing because it's something that is known. Okay. So the Gemara says, Ravina Sava lachshuri biknufi daramoy. Ravina considered ruling that documents processed by the assembly of Armenian judges was not official. That was not officially official court is valid. So he wanted to say it's valid because it was not an official court. Not an official court, right? At the bottom, rather, it was an assembly of dignitaries.
Ravina is trying to decide, is that a shtar hedyot or is that a shtar din?
So he said it's a shtar hedyot.
Trying to figure it out, right?
Amalei Rav Afram said to him, Markois Tanan. We learned in our Mishnah, documents that have been processed by court are valid. So in our Mishnah, it sounds that they have to be done by a court. And this is not a court. So he knocked them off. Amar Rava, so Rava said, Hi Shtar Parsa, Persian documents. So the documents were written in Persian, and the witnesses who were signed were Persian. Persian documents. The Masnei Lele Ba'af Yisad Yisrael that was delivered. This is not talking about a get. This is talking about money that was delivered and was given over in presence of Jewish witnesses. Document. You can collect the money from freed properties, unencumbered properties.
That just means nobody else has a claim to those properties.
So let's read to number 18. The documents recorded some form of financial obligation, a loan. The law is that a debtor defaults on a financial obligation, the creditor may seize his property as payment. If the obligation was recorded in a document, the creditor may seize even land that was sold by the debtor after the obligation took effect. So if Yankel took a loan in the beginning of the year Tishrei, that's telling you the law. anything that he sells after Tishrei is like he sold it, but if he doesn't pay his loan, the guy that has the document can come and take the land away from the buyer. That's why you have in America, you have to take when you buy a property, you got to get, what do they call those guys?
Title search.
What?
Title search.
Title search. Correct. The title search.
Make sure there's no liens on the property.
The difference is that title search looks at there's a lien on the property. It's interesting. The Jewish law is that Abba Choiv means a person, the lender is it doesn't make a difference if the borrower put a lien on his property. Eved loyvel ishmalva. A borrower is an eved to the lender. And even if they didn't put a lien on the property, that property is linked to him. It's automatically linked to him. Okay? So now, if I'm the lender and Yankel, you're the borrower, and now in the document I gave you $1,000, and now you've defaulted on your loan, I can go and take property worth $1,000, even though you sold it in the meantime to somebody else. I can go to the buyer that bought it from you and take away the property. And that's all I got to show is that I have a document of $1,000. He says, what do you mean? I bought it. You bought it after my document. Therefore, this document comes first, right? After obligation took place. In the present case, however, even though the obligation is recorded in a document, the creditor is permitted to take any unencumbered properties, meaning property that is still in the debtor's possession. This document is a shvacha document, okay? So it's a document because it's written by a kois, not written, and it's written whatever. So therefore, we're only accepting that you can go and grab money the guy has or property the guy still has. You cannot go and grab property that he sold. Yep, you got it?
Yeah.
The Gemara below explains why it may be why you're not allowed to size, you're not allowed to grab the lender cannot grab properties that are sold. Very interesting halacha. So over here, that's the Gemara. So the Gemara, so that's the law we were holding over here. So the Gemara asks a question. So that's called bnei chayri. Bnei chayri, that means you can grab, the lender can grab from free properties that are not sold yet. Right?
Yeah.
Right. And not otherwise pledged to somebody else.
Correct. Back to Gemara. But they, the witnesses to deliver, do not know how to read Persian. So how can the witnesses that gave a document know what's written in the document? What do they know what's written in the document? How can they know what's written in the document? In general, that's what's very important to realize. Witnesses, if you're going to be a witness, anytime you're going to be a witness, if somebody's asked you to be a witness for something, you just cannot be a witness for a transaction. You got to be witness. You know what? You have to know what the transaction is. You got to know what's going on. You got to know what it says in the document. How can you witness? You're going to go to witness a ksuba, and you're not going to know what it says in the ksuba. What are you witnessing?
Right.
You're witnessing your signature. You're witnessing something that's happening. So you got to know what's happening. So that's a problem. You have people who sign witness on a ksuba. They can't read the ksuba.
So you have someone translate.
So you have to translate it to them. Because if not, they don't know what they're signing. So how can they be witness to signing something, but they're not signing? So the question over here is: you have a Persian document. How do you know that they're signing? I saw him giving the document. What says in it? You know what says in the document? Do you know what says in the document? No. What do you mean? Maybe the document says the guy gave over shmatas. How do you know that the document says he owes money or he gives it? How do you know what it says in the document? So the Gemara says, so it doesn't make sense. Therefore, the Gemara has to answer that b'yadoi, that they know. They either know how to read Persian or somebody told them what it says in the document. Because if not, they have no value. In general, even by Edom Esido, I said for a get is given over in front of two witnesses, the witnesses have to know what's going on, that he's giving a get. Not that they're going to ask later, what did the husband give the wife? Oh, he gave him that he owes him money. No, it's not. It's a get. You have to know what they have to know what the husband's giving and what the woman's taking, right? So the Gemara says, "Va'bi'inan," but there's another problem. The Gemara has another question. "Va'bi'inan ksav shein yachal azayiv." We require writings that you cannot forge. Vileka, and this is not the case here. A document must be written on parchment that was treated with gallon nuts, which is not susceptible to forgery. Right? Number 20, it is discernible whether a written on such parchment that have been erased. Therefore, one will not erase the text of such a document, leaving signature of the witnesses and write something else on a place of a regular sum of money because it's detected the document has been altered. So it has to be written with ink that is not easily erasable.
Yeah, it's got to have the holograms on it.
Because if not, it could be mezuyif metoichai. If that's mezuyif metoichai. Mezuyif metoichai means that it could be forged in the document. So if I have a document that is not written with a certain kind of ink, so it could be changed. How do you know the document was not erased? It said $5 and the guy wrote $5,000. Right? So Veleka, but Persian write their documents. I don't know, this is something new I just learned. Persian write the documents on parchment that is not treated by Galanan. So how do you know that the document cannot be forged? So the Gemara says, no, bid afsian, that it is. We know this document was written with that cannot be forged. Right, the Gemara further, we require that one must repeat the essence of the document in the last line. It's interesting, but that's exactly what we do in a ksuba. We repeat in short. We repeat that everything was done in front of. We repeat the chassan and kalas, their name and their father's name again at the last line. We started it off at the beginning of the document, and right before we say v'kanina, we say and it was acquired by. We repeat it again by Yankov ben Shimon to his wife. So it's repeated again. Whatever was written is repeated in short again. If you look at a ksub, you'll see that. It's repeated again. That's the way it needs to be written. So you write a document up, and then it needs to be repeated at the last line, exactly what, in general form, what the document said. What happened over here? In short. It's interesting also, just the interesting thing, but in general, you see that when ksubis, when they write a ksuba, it can be written before, like months before, and they leave, and even the names can be written before, everything they leave before, and they usually leave the yud or the kuf of the kanina. They leave out the yud of the kanina. You know, the kanina means that they did a kinyan. That's the last two lines of the document. the kanina, because that's the most important thing, that we did a kinyan over here, right? That there was a kinyan done between the chassan and the kala. Not that there was a document. The document is telling you what happened at the end. It says v'chanina, and we did a kinyan between the chassan and kala, and this they leave that yud out. So now when there's two witnesses there and we do the kinyan, we write the yud in. We fill in the yud. Or whatever, the vav of the, sometimes the yud or sometimes the vav of the kuf. They leave one of the letters out so that we can fill it in and we validate the document again. Veleka, seemingly in this document, they don't do that. So the Gemara answers, no, b'mahader, that this document had that too. For the Gemara, Hachi, if all this document from Persia had all these met, why did they only collect from the non committed property? Why didn't they collect also from the property that was sold? So the Gemara says the less they color a document coming from another country, there's no call. Nobody will know what happened. You're going to come and you're going to take away something from you're going to come and take away you're going to come and take away something from somebody else. Nobody knows. Who knows the guy in Persia? Who's going to stick up for this document? Nobody. And therefore we're afraid that maybe, there's still a questionable, because this comes from a different country. And therefore we're not going to take away property from that was already sold already. Given away, we'll take away property that was not sold. Should we just get to the Mishnah? Should we finish to the Mishnah? You want to just finish to the Mishnah? It's another couple of lines.
Yeah, sure.
That's the question of Rabbi Yechanan. Eidim ha'chesmen ala get. If there are witnesses that sign on a get, Jews, Jewish witnesses that sign on a get, and their names are like goyim. They're goyish names. That's their names. So, Mao, what is the law? What is the law? So the guy,
he's clearly asking the Tanakama of our Mishnah.
Right, correct.
Right? Because Rabbi Shimon would say there's no problem.
Right, but no, that's not a comment. Yeah. Amalei. So he said to him, "Loi bali adeinu el lukus velus." The only case, such case became before us in court was Lucas and Lus. And we said it's valid. He said the story happened. And we accepted it. We ruled that the get is valid. For Dafka, Lucas velus. Now, this only applies to the Lucas and Luz. Because you don't find Jews who call themselves Lucas. Aval Shemesaya Achina, but names that are other names, the Shchichi saw the Mashmesaya, which Jews can be called on it, lie, it wouldn't be valid. So in essence, he answered, he said, we wouldn't accept it if we thought that a Jews could have such kind of names.
So he pretty much answers like Rabbi Shimon.
Correct. Shemus Vavaka. Ace Rabbi Yechanan challenged the following brayse: Gittin habayim Medina Sayam, Gittin that were brought from the others from America. Eidim Chaisman Leim, witnesses were signing them. Even if the names resembles like Goyish names, Shadim, they're valid. Why? This is so true. Most Jews in America, Chutz La'aretz, Shmei Seim, they use Goyish names. So it was probably Jews, but they're using Goyish names. They're
Change
using
the
Goyish
names.
names. In America, they use Goyish names.
So the thing is, the way this price is phrased, because this is Apalpi, it means that if their names were definitely Jewish names, it would definitely be kosher.
Right, 100%.
That's even.
But even if they're Goyish names, even if they're Goyish,
against Rabbi Shimon,
right?
even Rabbi Shimon doesn't agree with that.
If the 100% Jewish, right? No way.
Where is this coming from? This Baraita? Who agrees with this?
Well, the Tanakama surely agrees with it. The
No,
Tanakama,
the Tanakama doesn't want to accept Gittin from Avdi Kokovim.
Okay, that's a question.
I guess we're saying it's from a Jewish court. It just happens to be Medina Sayyam.
I mean, the Dafka.
So our mission is not really talking about this situation. Because it's from a Jewish court, it just happens to have Goyish names on it. Like if it's from a Jewish court and had Jewish names, everybody agrees it's kosher.
I passed the Tana is talking about Eretz Yisrael.
Well, he's talking about coming from Medina Sayyam to Eretz Yisrael.
No, but in the Tana now mission is talking about Eretz Yisrael.
Okay.
This guy is talking about Chutz La'aretz.
Okay.
I'm talking about Eretz Yisrael.
Okay,
So therefore, in essence,
Chutz La'aretz will be Persians here. There's Persian courts in Eretz Yisrael?
No, that was talking about money. That was talking about money issues.
That's the money, yeah. Okay.
So the Gemara says, the Braisa gives the reason. And it says, most Jews in the Chutz La'aretz, Shmei saying, most Jews in Chutz La'aretz have Goyish names. So therefore, you don't have a problem because most Jews in Chutz, but in Eretz Yisrael, most Jews in Eretz Yisrael have Yiddish names. So now you have a problem. Maybe it could be from the Miyut. Maybe you have a name. Who said it's from the Goy or it's from the Yid? But in Chutz La'aretz, most Yidden use Goyish names. So therefore, you don't got a problem. It's like Shemus Vakim. Most Yidden in the Chutz La'aretz use Goyish names. And some people say, in the case of Shlakish asked Rabbi Yechon, as the same as the Brais, meaning the get brought from abroad, signed by witnesses, whose names resembles those of idolatry. Partially, Masnisa and Rabbi Yechon solved the inquiry from the Brais, which states that since most Jews who live abroad have names that resemble those of idolaters, it can be assumed that the witnesses of such a get were Jews. It's irrelevant. It means, in essence, ultimately, that if it comes from a Chutz La'aretz, you're going to be more makel in these kind of names. Why? Because Abik Pashtas, they're Yidden. Why would Goyim sign on a get? So at Pashtas, even though the get says Lewis, it says Yankel's a Jewish name. It says Peter. It says because Yidden use Goyish names. That's the way they do it in the Chutz La'aretz. So we would accept such a Pashtas. Maybe everybody would agree that will accept a get that was written from Chutz La'aretz with these kind of names. And now we finished the whole from the Mishnah, and next Monday we can start a whole new Mishnah. We're almost finished, actually. Yeah, it's not almost. Very nice, guys.
Okay.
Pleasure learning with you guys. Have a wonderful night.
Too.
Have a good evening, and hope everybody's doing well.
Okay, thanks.
God bless you.
Bless.